See. Oh.
All right, who's ready for Coach Painter? Brian, you can start us again if you're ready.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good.
Good. Just what you've seen from Travion so far. I know you're going to ask a lot of him this year. You're going to ask a lot more minutes from him probably. Just where do you see him being after all of one day of practice, but also the off-season workouts you had in terms of his conditioning and his just kind of everything that goes into what you need from him this year?
Right. Well, I think, you continue to, get into shape and to keep working at it. It's not something that ever stops. You want to put yourself in the best, possible position. He's a guy that can really pass the ball. He can handle the ball. And so the better shape he can get, he can move off the bounce, especially against bigger, guys. So he can move around and really be nimble to go along with what he does in the post. But just his awareness at all times and his understanding, I think those two things, he's got a good basketball mind. So being in shape and not having fatigue issues, I think those things will really jump out as awareness. When he's sharp, he's got a really good feel for what's going on, but you can't come in and out of that, because of fatigue. So, obviously it's one day, and obviously we've had some workouts, throughout the, since July 20th that we've been kind of hit and miss with, but we've had enough workouts to kind of see where we are, I guess, to a degree. So just trying to keep everybody, our practice was shorter yesterday. Just from a conditioning standpoint, just make sure that we're easing into that piece and we're doing everything from a health and safety standpoint to kind of wean into the season. You normally have a long practices, to start the season, and then you taper down as you get to the end of the season. You're only really practicing for about 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes after starting off at 3 hours. Yesterday we went to 2 hours, including our stretching, including stopping for shooting, free throws, things of that nature, just to kind of break everything up. So we'll have a little bit of a build up here. I know you didn't ask this question, but I think we'll have a little bit of a build up here in the first week or so as we try to get back to that, 2:45 to 3 hours of practice. That'll probably take a couple weeks to get to that if there's no hiccups. And then we'll, just kind of look at our game and kind of our situation, our first game and our situation, to try to get guys to where you're, primed and ready to go for that first game from a conditioning standpoint.
Are the freshmen where they would be if there wasn't a pandemic?
I don't think anybody's where they would be if there wasn't a pandemic. I think everybody would be in a better position. But with that being said, it's the same for everybody in college basketball. So, there's no competitive advantage there.
Right.
No, they're not in the same position.
You'd said, though, at the start when nobody knew what the offseason was going to look like, that you thought it would hurt freshmen more because it's important for them to acclimate and learn and whatnot.
Correct.
Was that an issue then?
It's an issue. It's an issue. So what it does is it's not as an issue as much as it's just your learning curve's different when you're, and that's what you should have some people that have an advantage because they know what they're doing and they know what's going on. And so less time is going to really hurt those guys more, but we all know certain people can learn quicker than others. So those guys that pick up things easier, they're going to really take off here in this first month or so of practice. Whereas guys aren't, sometimes it gets overwhelming to them and it actually gets harder. It just depends on who you are.
Does that shape what you expect from your newcomers right now, being that perhaps things weren't traditional for them? Because you're going to ask a lot of Jaden, Ethan, and Zach, I'd assume.
Yeah, they're definitely going to play. When you have 11 scholarship guys and one of your scholarship guys is out, you're now at 10. And so each one of us, each one of those three true freshmen give us something we don't have. Zach gives us that elite size. Jaden gives us, Jaden's the most athletic, the fastest guy on our team. He has a good ability to score the ball. And then Ethan gives us, a lot of things. He's a really good rebounding guard. He's a very good passer and decision maker. just a good, all-around basketball player. So the decision-making really jumps out for Ethan, the athleticism for Jaden, and his ability to score, and that elite side that Zach can give us. So, all those guys, give us something. I think that's an important part of the recruiting process is, go to a school that's had success, but also go to a school that needs you.
Right.
Sometimes when you line up and you go to places, you're like, hey, they've had a lot of success, but, you're going to play, but do they really need you right away? All three of those guys, there's a need for.
And then just one last thing for me real quick. Is everyone available right now?
Everybody except Emmanuel. He's still is just having some difficulties from a breathing standpoint, and just, he hasn't got to that point yet. That question would probably be better answered, from our medical staff than from me.
I'm good. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Carm, go ahead.
Mike Carmen, Lafayette Journal and Courier. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I assume you were referring to Manny when you said you're down one scholarship guy?
Yes. Yeah, I said his name. Yeah.
Okay. I was just double checking, make sure. The competition in the backcourt, a lot of guys back there fighting for playing time. Just how have you seen that unfold in the workouts? I know you haven't had one practice, but how's that unfolded in the workouts a little bit?
Well, they've all, been pretty competitive and played well, and, who can help us, the most winning. I think obviously the guys that have played a lot have an advantage. Eric Hunter and Sasha. Obviously Isaiah played 19 minutes a game last year as a freshman. Those guys right now sitting after one practice, have an advantage than the other guys, I think rightfully so. But, you want to kind of see how things evolve and who we circle things around from their production here in practice. So, but I like all of them. There's not one of those guys that I don't look at and like, they're not going to play. I think all those guys will play. Just, to what degree, that's what they're going to decide. And, Eric Hunter's really gives us a guy that can play on both ends, and being a two-way player. Sasha can really shoot the basketball and has a lot of experience of playing and playing in structure. Isaiah gives us, some speed, some quickness, his ability to make shots, make deep threes. I talked earlier about Jaden and what he brings and what Ethan brings. And then Brandon Newman can really shoot the ball, can rebound the ball. Was a good rebounder in high school. And so those two areas for him are, I think are very important, and just, playing to his strengths and, and competing. But who's going to defend out of that group? I think all of them have some offensive capabilities for us that can really help us. Some of them have some things like we talked about, Ethan's decision-making or Jaden's athleticism or Brandon's that could really step up. But like who out of that group can really help us from a winning standpoint on the defensive end, and just competing and doing their job. That could really be a separator for us, because I like all those guys on the offensive end of the court.
And with Manny out, obviously Zach's getting a lot of the backup time.
Right.
Bravion. Just what have you seen out of Zach, and how much closer is he to maybe filling that role? I mean, I know you got to get in games and more practices, but
right.
What about his development so far? Have you liked?
He's been very pleased. He still has a ways to go. He's going to have some tough days. All freshmen have tough days, but he's going to have, some tough days in front of him. I think it's a big adjustment once you start playing other people. But he's done some good things. He's done some really good things in practice, and we're pleased. He's in better shape, obviously, than he was when we first started working with him. So now that he's in better shape, and then he didn't have any subs. So I think that helps a guy. They seem like it hurts him a little bit, but when you get into practice and you have to stay in practice because there's no subs, you quickly get into shape and realize that helps you. Your ability to change ends and your ability to process information. Guys, they lose their hearing when they get fatigued, and you got to still do what you're supposed to do and be functional out there. And he's done a very good job with that.
Just and with Aaron Wheeler, kind of where where's his mindset at as you guys get ready for practice? Do you feel like he's kind of washed last year behind him, or does he need to remember some of the things that happened last year in order to make him better this year?
Yeah, well, I thought he had some good, aspects of his game that he improved on. I thought he improved, defensively. I thought he improved rebounding the basketball. He just didn't shoot the ball well. And I think that piece of it, really diminished his minutes as the season went on, because it ends up affecting other things. I think we all would agree, with that at times, especially when you have those kind of struggles. But he has shown that he can shoot the ball the previous year. That's when we recruited him. He shot the ball well and had some really good games. He had some really good games, his redshirt freshman year, for us, when Michigan State at home, he was 3 for 3 in the first half from 3. Maryland at home, made some shots, had some big plays in the NCAA tournament. So, he's been successful. And obviously he was looking for that year to break out. And hopefully this is his year to break out. But he's had a great attitude and he's worked really hard. And, we're looking forward to, him getting that opportunity and playing well.
Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got one, Coach. The strength of the league, I'm curious about in terms of the number of players that are coming back around the league. You have Coburn back at Illinois, obviously Trace Jackson-Davis back at Indiana, Garza back at Iowa. Just your thoughts. Do you see it as being as deep and competitive a league as it was last year?
I would think so. It's a really hard gauge for us with everything that's happened. But from, gauging that from people returning and people coming in, and, you can always get that shot in the arm too in your league by some freshmen playing well, or some guys that were freshmen that really make a big jump into their sophomore year. I think you see that a lot. So from the returners, sure, all those guys that you mentioned, plus Io at Illinois, and, just across the board. I know we had some other guys put their name in the draft, Isaiah Livers, Carr at Minnesota, and those guys are really good players. So, those guys, coming back and thinking about your team is really important. I think that's always an adjustment when guys put their name in the draft, they come back. Like, where are they? Are we here for our team to win? What are we thinking about? Because that takes a little bit of an adjustment, because you get gauged on winning games in college and playing well together. So that's what I think is going to be huge for us. The thing that separates you a lot of times is your non-conference. And so that's such an uncertainty, because everybody's trying to put their schedules together and get all their ducks in a row with everything, with contracts and dates and availability. So this has been really, really challenging for all of us. So hopefully we can all have a full non-conference schedule so we can play well and win games. And then that can really set the tone, for our league. And obviously we're going to, battle each other and beat each other up and have, 20 conference games. And so that will be a real telltale for it. But I think at the worst we'll be about the same, to be honest with you. But we have the opportunity. It's just a different year to have even a better year than last year. So what stinks is that we didn't get to finish it off, last year. So we really don't have a full picture, even though it was almost, a complete picture of what that really looked at. Because, we would have liked to get, those 9-10 teams in the NCAA tournament and then really do damage as a league in the tournament. So hopefully we can get around that number again, whether that's 8, 9, 10 teams in the tournament, and then, play well in the NCAA tournament. We're just hoping to be one of them. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Hey, Matt, what are you looking for from a leadership standpoint with Eric? He mentioned that he's trying to be more vocal, and you and the rest of the coaches have been on him as of late. What are you looking for?
I think that's it for him. He's played well for us, and I think that gets lost. I think he had more of an opportunity last year, jumping from a freshman to a sophomore, and he played well. We didn't win as much, and sometimes when you don't win as much, some positives will get lost in the fray, but I thought he had a good adjustment from his freshman to sophomore year, especially defensively. He did some good things offensively. He can play better offensively than he did last year. He can get to the basket. He can make decisions better. He can make pull-ups. He can make threes. He's a good offensive player, but, he really made some strides on the defensive end too. So just being that quality two-way player, leading by example. But no, we need him to be more vocal. By nature, he's quiet. And so we've really tried to push on him there, to help our team. Anytime you have experience and you have somebody that's had some success, you want them to talk and, say the right things and, do all the things and that leaders should do to help their team win.
Who are the guys on the team that just are inherently vocal that you don't have to say that to?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of guys like that. That doesn't mean you can't be vocal and doesn't mean you can't lead by example. So the guys that are most in terms of talking are guys that haven't played for us. Mason Gillis, Ethan Morton, those guys probably have the most in that area. But when you're trying to get it figured out, sometimes you're not going to be as vocal. That's why it's so important for the people that know more and have more experience speak up, because they're going to be more confident in what they're saying. They're going to be more sure of what they're saying. The last thing, somebody who's just naturally vocal and Ethan Morton's a natural leader, he's still trying to find his way. You got to let those guys find their way a little bit. But sometimes the simplicity of things, no matter what system you're in, playing hard, doing your job, things of that nature. More. Sometimes you know a lot less than you realize, but then there's times like this where you probably know more than you realize.
So last time we talked with you, obviously we knew about the start of the season. And obviously the goal of that, and you mentioned the number, I think like 77% of kids are off campus. But do you have any more clarity on when kids do return, how things will look beyond that when it comes to the schedule?
No, I don't. We do not have our schedule yet. They're still working with TV to get our conference schedule. So we, as coaches, we would really like to have it, but it's also, it's the waiting game and they have to get everything figured out. And, you don't want to be able to make a schedule and undo a schedule. You want to make a schedule and finalize it all in the same brush. And so that's kind of where we are.
Do you anticipate playing in the Crossroads Classic?
Yes. Yeah. And so that's what we're trying to do that. We're trying to get that finalized. So, you just got to make sure it works for everybody and make sure everything is set. There's just more things, to it this year, obviously, when you're dealing with the testing, making sure everything is set up under the protocol and under the guidelines of the NCAA, but also the Big Ten Conference in Purdue.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thanks, guys.